This is a guide to public liability claims in Ireland. What is public liability? There is a legal responsibility on an owner or occupier of a premises, for example, or a state authority who have responsibility for the control of an area with respect to a duty of care. The following steps must have the law applied to the facts in order to establish if a public liability claim can commence, namely, was there a duty of care owed between the parties? Breach of duty, did the defendant breach this duty? Causation, it must be proved the defendant's action to omission caused the injury. Sanity damage, the person suffered damage as a result. If these four matters are in the affirmative, then the person has a statable public liability claim to advance. Role of the Personal Injuries Board. The Personal Injuries Board deal with personal injury claims such as motor liability, public liability, employer liability claims, etc. The board was established by the Personal Injuries Board Assessment Act 2003, duty of care. The injured party must prove they are owed a duty of care. A breach of this duty arose. This breach directly caused the injury sustained. Photograph evidence can be of assistance in such cases in addition to other forms of evidence. Owners and occupiers of public and private property have a duty to take reasonable care to ensure visitors safely enter and leave the premises not injured. This duty includes keeping their property reasonably clean and safe, as well as taking reasonable and adequate steps to correct any hazardous conditions if they arise on their property. Any hazardous defects should be dealt with by the person responsible for the property. Occupiers Liability Act, 1995. The above Act places an obligation on the occupier of the premises in terms of a duty owed to the visitor. An occupier of a premises owes a duty of care, the common duty of care, towards a visitor thereto, except insofar as the occupier extends, restricts, modifies, or excludes that duty in accordance with Section 5. The common duty of care means a duty to take such care as is reasonable in all the circumstances, having regard to the care which a visitor may reasonably be expected to take for his or her own safety, and if the visitor is on the premises in the company of another person, the extent of the supervision and control the latter person may reasonably be expected to exercise over the visitor's activities, to ensure that a visitor to the premises does not suffer injury or damage by reason of any danger existing thereon. The above duty imposed on the occupier of a premises is not an absolute duty in terms of the extent of obligation owed by them, but rather to carry out reasonable care and prevention steps. Courts and Civil Law Miscellaneous Provisions, Act 2023. This Act has amended ECIS 3 of the 1995 Occupiers Liability Act, 40. Section 3 of the Act of 1995 is amended A. by the insertion of the following subsection after subsection 1. 1a, without prejudice to the generality of subsection 2 in determining the extent of the common duty of care of an occupier towards a visitor, and whether it has been complied with by the occupier, regard shall be had, as appropriate, to all of the circumstances and matters referred to in that subsection, which shall include, but are not limited to, the following. A. The probability of a danger existing on the premises. B. The probability of the occurrence of an injury to, or of damage suffered by, a visitor by reason of a danger existing on the premises. C. The probable severity of an injury to a visitor that might result from a danger existing on the premises. D. The practicability and the cost of precautions or preventative measures. E. Where applicable, the social utility of the activity or conduct that gives rise to the risk of injury or damage referred to in paragraph B. And B, in subsection 2, by the substitution of section and subject to section 5a for section. Personalised Injuries Assessment Board. The Injuries Board is an independent state body, is not a court, has no judicial function, and applicants are not required to attend at the Injuries Board to give evidence. It was established to deal with personal injury claims. Personal Injuries Board Act 2003 is the primary act established the rules for cases before the board, which has been revised over the years. Personal Injury Guidelines. The Personal Injury Guidelines detailing categories A and B damages, which can be awarded in personal injury claims. They deal with general damages, which is for the pain and suffering. The level of the award will be assessed on the basis of the following considerations: age, interference with quality of life and education, impact on work, impact on interpersonal relationships, whether medical assistance has been sought, nature, extent and duration of treatment undertaken and/or medication prescribed, likely success of treatment, prognosis to include any future vulnerability, the extent and/or nature of any associated physical injuries. For spinal injuries, there may be significant ongoing care-related requirements which needs to be assessed in a case, and if a loss arises, this loss sum is included in heading of loss titled Special Damages. If you have any questions, our contact details are 01 54611121 or 052 612 1999, or our email address is info@clearysolicitors.com, personal injuries. In contentious business, a solicitor may not calculate fees or other charges as a percentage or proportion of any award or settlement.